Hello again, everyone. It's MrMostDaysOff.
And I'm the WizKid.
And we're here to talk about PopThreads.com, our newest sponsor and your online destination for all pop culture t-shirts. And right now, for our listeners, they are offering 10% off just by using the discount code Simpsons at checkout.
Woohoo!
They have some awesome Simpsons shirts. They've also got other things like old school Nickelodeon, my favorite, Legends of the Hidden Temple, and they've got us wrestling fans covered.
They also have up to the current season t-shirts from TV shows like Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead. So make sure you head over to popthreads.com right now.
Use that discount code Simpsons
so you can save a lot of dope!
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. My name is Miles, better known as MrMostDaysOff, and I am back for another couple of classic Simpsons episodes to kick off the third season. But don't worry, we did not leave your co-host with the most back in the last season. He's here with us again. Let me introduce to you, Richie the WizKid. How are you today, Rich?
I'm doing great. It's the start of season 3, so we've already been the worst, we've already been the best. Now we got ourselves a couple of hairy chests. So we will just dive right into these episodes. I'll throw it back to you, the man, the myth, the Michael Jackson. It is MrMostDaysOff.
That's probably my favorite one yet, sir. Nicely done, nicely done. Glad to be back with you for season 3. I think that you kind of alluded to it with the hairy chest thing. I think what you mean is this is getting into the mature state of The Simpsons, where everything is clicking full cylinders, full steam ahead. Jokes are firing, the characters are developed. We're really getting into some of the best stuff from The Simpsons. And fortunately, this is just the start. We've got several seasons of The Simpsons right now that we've really got a lot of strong shows ahead. We mentioned it on the finale of last season, but we've got a lot of great stuff lined up for you this season. We got some special guests, good episodes, solid stuff. We can't wait, but let's just go ahead and dive right in to the first episode, Stark-Raving Dad, which debuted on September 19th, 1991, and as most everyone is already gonna know, has one of the greatest guest star appearances of all time with Michael
John J.
Jackson.
Smith. Oh, wait.
Yeah, exactly. We did talk about that a little bit on Lisa's Substitute with Sam Eddick, as it was for Dustin Hoffman, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, Dustin Hoffman was the first big time guest star for The Simpsons, and this was number 2. And they both used pseudonyms, which was actually prohibited by The Simpsons after this episode. They just went through a lot of issues. I was going to talk about this later, but we'll talk about it now. Michael Jackson was only allowed to do the voice on this episode. He was not allowed to sing any of the songs. They actually had to get an impersonator for that. And long story short, lawyers get involved, shit happens, and they just decided that for then on out, going forward, when guest celebrities appear on the show, they're going to use their real names. And to be honest, I think also they kind of realized that they may have had a hit on their hands by this point. Like, I feel like not only was the writing picking up in stride, but also I think like the confidence behind the show. The creators of the show, I think at this point are starting to realize like, oh wow, we've got something here.
Well, it says something here in my Simpsons, A Complete Guide to Our Favorite Family. It has a little tidbit at the bottom of this episode where it says there's a contractual obligation at the time that prevented the show from confirming that the real Michael Jackson supplied the voice of Michael Jackson. And that's why they had to go with the mysterious name. And that definitely ties into what you were just talking about. But it looks like there was something contractually that probably played in him not being able to sing as well, I would assume.
Yeah, I want to say that a lot of this came from Michael Jackson's record labels, and where they knew they're like, we have fucking Michael Jackson. We're not letting you have them for free. They're letting you have that for free. I mean, I hate to say that a black man was owned by the record label, but like essentially he was kind of was at that point in his career, especially being in the industry for so long at that point.
Was he still black at that time?
Well, that part's up for debate, but what's not is that, I mean, I think Michael Jackson's tale in general is kind of sad when you look back on it, but just at the age he was at this time, the popularity, I mean, this was post-Thriller, he is already the man, he's fucking Michael Jackson, and the record labels rightfully to some degree know that they've got a very valuable property, but the simple fact was Michael Jackson actually called Matt Groening and asked to be on The Simpsons because he loved Bart Simpson so much. I feel like there's a joke there with Michael Jackson loving a 10-year-old boy, but I'm not even going to make it because I also really love Bart Simpson.
Yeah, I mean, he has been nude a few times, so that would play right into that wheelhouse there.
Yeah, sad stuff. But anyway, backing up a little bit, Stark-Raving Dad, which again debuted on September 19th, 1991, it had the chalkboard gag, I am not a dentist, which makes you love to think about how Bart ended up in detention that day. He probably was trying to run a scam to get more visits from the Tooth Fairy, because that's the type of thing Bart would do.
Tying strings to kids' teeth and slamming the door on them.
Yeah, totally.
When their teeth weren't even
and charging them a percentage of whatever the cut from the Tooth Fairy they get is, would probably be how he'd work it. They do the couch gag where they all jump on the couch and it kind of flips backwards through the wall. And I was wondering, was this the wall that's connected to the same wall that bookshelf is in from Treehouse of Horror? Because they went through like a void. Like there was just nothing in that wall. It just went to complete blackness.
I'm not sure because I believe that vortex is in the closet from when you first walk into the Simpsons home.
Yeah, there's something interesting there. I thought that was kind of fun.
We need to start pulling up the floor plans of the Simpsons household with everything we bring up about the people walking in the back doors. And
I'm gonna let you be on that patrol because you're always the one that's noticing weird shit about their house and stuff. But yeah, that would actually. It's kind of like with the South Park, the Stick of Truth. We finally got like a official layout of South Park.
Yeah,
it would actually be really cool if we could get something similar for the Simpsons, which may exist. We should probably use the magic of the internet and look for that. But if it doesn't, it should. That would be really cool.
Well, there's that one Grand Theft Auto-esque Simpsons game, Hit and Run, where they actually have the town mapped out a little bit, but I don't know if the writers stand by the way that game is developed as to pertain to how their town layout looks.
I remember trying to play that game, and it was very not great. I think it was just the problem was it was at the times when like graphically 3D games were kind of a little bit mushy, essentially, and like, you know what I mean? Like there wasn't crisp worlds that you could like define characters as well as you can, obviously, in modern era. But maybe I should give it a revisit. Maybe I'm wrong on that. It always seemed like a cool idea to have an open world Simpsons game.
I think it was better than a lot of the other Simpsons games we've played.
Well, that Simpsons wrestling game is one of the worst fucking games ever, period. Like, it is just so awful. And I love wrestling, and I love The Simpsons, so I wanted it to be good. But, man, what a cash in that was. That was awful. So anyway, this episode, Stark-Raving Dad, starts with Lisa waking Bart up at 6 a.m. Bart's immediately like, oh no, what's wrong? Did Dad die? And Lisa assures him he's fine. It's just her birth, or she just wanted to talk to him. And Bart has a really funny line here where he's like, oh, what do you know? I'm relieved to find out that his dad was not dead. Bart and Lisa start talking about Lisa's birthday. Lisa's, she's turning 8 years old. She's asking Bart for advice, basically letting Bart know that she really wants a present. Bart starts talking, there's a funny moment where he's like talking about getting old. He's like, oh yeah, when you hit the big 1-0, things really start to go downhill. Your knees hurt, candy doesn't taste as good. And Lisa is just basically like, well really, I want you to give me a birthday present. I do so much for you. Please don't let me down on this. And it just opens up with Lisa making a point that she does not want to be overlooked.
It makes a point where Lisa surely knows she's going to be upset.
It seems like things are going that way, doesn't it?
Way too much effort.
She knows that she's going to be let down by Bart.
And really, that's something I think that Marge and Homer should be instructing Bart on. But I guess they're not doing that great of a job parenting. You think, like, if I've never had a brother or sister, but if I had a sibling, my parents would say, hey, their birthday's coming up, we need to try to get them something. So you think you wouldn't put the pressure just solely on the child, but that would, again, ruin the entire episode if you did that.
Yeah, and this family, it kind of works this way, because Homer's too much of a buffoon to think of it. Marge is already so busy because she's picking up the slack of Homer and, raising 3 kids and all that good stuff. And then Lisa is an exceptional, almost 8-year-old, it seems. So there's a lot going into Lisa doing that, but I do see your point there. That scene just kind of planted a seed for later, but what I really like in the next scene is we've got Bart at breakfast, and Marge is overwhelmed, as I just alluded to, and she asks Bart to just keep an eye on Maggie for just a minute. And Bart sees a 900 number on the side of his Crustios. And I'm sure you remember these from when we were kids. I know there was a wrestling one, there was a Nintendo one, there's all these hotlines back in the 90s before the internet. And essentially they were 900 numbers that would charge you a ridiculous amount of money. It was like several dollars for the first minute and then 99 cents for every minute after that. And the whole get up on these things was essentially it was a scam to keep you on the phone as long as possible, supposedly hearing from, like, your favorite celebrity. Like I said, I know there's one I always wanted to call when I was a kid where you could call and, like, talk to your favorite wrestlers, but it would just be a pre-recorded message. And very similar to Krusty's, like, 3-minute laugh in this one.
I like that this plays into an issue the Simpsons definitely have in their child household, because there's an episode where Lisa is talking to a Corey forever and racking up a massive phone bill.
Oh, yeah.
So the kids tend to have a problem with this. But, you know, it's good that Bart had this moment, because it's been a few episodes, and by few episodes, I mean our show episodes, since we've gotten to talk about this magical baby that the Simpsons have. And when Bart is on the phone, we get to see Maggie using one of her Jedi jumps, where she's jumping up onto the fan and hanging on while it's spinning around. So I'm glad Bart had this moment, because we got to throw that in there.
See more magical Maggie?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's always fun. And again, a toddler, or an infant rather, being able to swing from the ceiling fan does seem a little bit above the average athletic ability of a 1-year-old.
Well, it's more the jump to me. Like, she does that Jedi Master jump thing where she just throws herself a long distance for no reason whatsoever.
Or maybe Homer threw her, like, because he trusted the fan to catch her because it's just a baby.
But Homer wasn't in there.
I was just kidding.
Referencing Danny DeVito.
One other fun fact about that 900 number, they actually used a 903 number to spoof the 900 number, which at the time was totally fine, but less than a year later, that number was actually used, or that area code was actually starting to be used in Southern California. So now, when they re-air these episodes, they have to block out that number, because it's been a working number since like 2002 or something like that.
I bet they get a lot of phone calls.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, the people on the DVD see it every single time.
Oh, something I forgot to tie in with the magical Maggie thing is after Marge comes back and sees Maggie twirling around on the ceiling fan, Bart actually used the excuse that Maggie overpowered me. So you see, Bart literally admits that she has magical / Jedi-like abilities.
I forgot about that. You're totally right. She did overpower Bart.
Bart wasn't joking around. He was being 100% serious.
Yeah, she overpowered him with her mind is what we didn't know.
Yep.
That's pretty fun. Right after this, we get Homer running into the room, panicking because he thinks someone stole his shirt. And he can't find it anywhere. Marge just lets him know that she just washed it. No big deal. But his iconic white shirt that we always see him in has been dyed pink in the laundry, which is a common sitcom trope. I've seen that a lot in shows. I'll be honest, this has never happened to me, not once. Now, we live in an era of safeguard soaps and color safe bleach and shit like that I'm sure these were legit problems back in the day, or probably more so to do with how the shirts were dyed. But I have never had a legitimate, like, laundry dye problem, not once in my entire life.
I have had one, and since that day, I have done all my own laundry every time since. So I think it was actually an evil plan hatched by my father that worked.
He probably put, like, food coloring in your fucking laundry whenever you were a kid just to convince you to always wash your own clothes.
It was sometime in early middle school. I think it was like 6th grade or something. And I had this green shirt with these leaves on it it was kind of like my dressy shirt, but it wasn't quite dressy, so that it made me feel cool without feeling dressed up. And he just washed a whole bunch.
You were pretty fly for a white guy, is what you're trying to say?
Yeah. But he put it in with a bunch of other things, and when it came out, it was all like brown and orange, and it literally went from like springtime leaves to fall time leaves on the shirt. And I was just like, funny. Oh my God. And he's like, I am so sorry. And ever since that time, I've done my own laundry. The next week, I had my mom show me how to do it, and I've done it on my own ever since.
That's pretty cool. I'm not planning on being a parent, but to all the parents out there, I would totally advise you to do that to your kids. Just ruin a load of their laundry with their favorite shirt in it young in life. Let them know that, you tried your best, but you're just overwhelmed. And from then out, you'll probably have your kids doing their own shit just to make sure that you don't accidentally ruin their cool clothes.
But that was the only shirt. That was the only thing in the laundry that turned colors, though. But it was a different kind of material on that shirt, so I think that played into it a little bit.
Or your dad literally just dyed it and then threw it in the wash.
I wouldn't put it past him.
I also really like in this scene, Homer is talking about how he can't wear a pink shirt. Marge is reassuring him it's fine. He's like, no, I'm not popular enough to wear a pink shirt. I can't be different.
Which that's still a true thing today.
That's totally true. Yeah, you gotta, if you are if you're like self-conscious about where you stand in society, which I mean, here's the thing, we all don't belong. So get fucking over it and relax and do what you want. But that's just my little tidbit of advice. As most of us know, at points in your life, you're gonna feel you're gonna feel insecure when you're in a group of people, and definitely standing out is going to possibly make you feel ostracized if you can't handle it. So in this case, he got very ostracized, very, very much so, because when he got to work, he was immediately spotted on the monitors, which there's a great scene. Burns and Smithers are watching everybody file into work wearing their white shirts, and they stop and zoom in to see Homer wearing pink. They're worried because it makes him look like some sort of free-thinking anarchist. And I love when Burns has kind of a excellent, these color monitors have already paid for themselves.
I like when he asks Smithers who it is, and Smithers tells him, and he goes, he's one of your boobs from Sector 7G. Which you would think Smithers would be okay with this, right?
Yeah, he, especially being that he used to wear bell bottoms in the 70s or something like that. That's right. Mr. Burns actually blames Smithers for being in cahoots with them because of some of his attire choices in the past. Marvin Monroe shows up to help out the situation. He talks about how in the past it would take weeks to psychologically evaluate somebody and determine if they're crazy, but now with his take-home personality test, you can do it overnight.
Well, before that, Smithers has another great line where they're interviewing Homer, and he talks to Burns, and he says his body cavity search revealed nothing. It's real fast and real quick, but when I heard him say that, I was like, wait, I don't remember that.
Yeah, they really take it to this guy for wearing a pink shirt. But yeah, so Homer and his pink shirt are sent home with a personality test, and we cut to Marge getting her hair ready, and I really laugh here. It's just a real quick little kind of visual gag where she's using a lot of hairspray on her insanely tall hair. She runs out, opens the drawer, and she's just got like a dozen cans of hairspray lined up, ready to go at all times, which kind of makes sense, actually, because her hair is ridiculous.
Well, and also we learn in future seasons that she has to color her hair as well, so there's a whole lot of effort that goes into that hair.
That is not a woke up like this hairstyle.
Exactly.
But Homer is actually trying to convince Marge to take this test for him, and she is like, Homer, it's a personality test. You have to do that yourself. So he goes to Lisa instead. Lisa agrees on the condition that he listens to her poem, which he makes it through a couple lines of, and then taps out and is like, oh, never mind, it's not worth it. But it was the poem was called Hesitation of Turning 8.
I actually, my little companion guide has it right here. I had a cat named Snowball. She died. Mom said she was sleeping. She lied. Why, oh why is the cat dead? Couldn't that Chrysler hit me instead? I had a hamster named Sniffy. He died. And then Homer's like, okay, I can't take it anymore.
Again, selfish Homer, not willing to just sit there and listen to his daughter's poem, which obviously, is not his jam, but he could have just tuned out. Just saying. So he takes the last option in his house, and that's to give it to Bart. And Bart takes it and is a little bit hesitant, but Homer reassures him, like, don't worry, it's no different than that time I let you vote for me. Remember the absentee ballot?
I wrote that line down as well. I very much enjoyed that moment.
So Homer is watching TV, and Bart's taking this test for him. Bart's kind of casually asking him some questions, like, Homer, do you hear voices? To which Homer replies, yes, I'm hearing voices right now while I'm trying to watch television. And basically Bart just ends up checking yes to everything, including, do you sometimes wet the bed? Everybody has their own accidents, right? Yeah. Everyone has a bad day once in a while. He shows up at work the next day and is like, so did I pass? And everyone just laughed and says no before they haul him away to the loony bin.
And let's be honest, Homer should have been probably put in there years and years ago, so this is a little overdue. 2 seasons overdue, maybe?
Well, what's kind of funny is this was originally going to start with Homer was going to drive Barney to the mental institution for help, and then once they got there, they were going to check in Homer by mistake. But once again, your boy James L. Brooks came up with the idea of the pink shirt causing him to go to the mental institution instead.
Well, I like how this one plays out because as we see towards the end of the episode, they find out some of the stuff Homer's been rambling about is actually true.
What? Bart's a real person?
I didn't want to give it away before we talked about it, but yeah.
It's my favorite line, I think.
But yes,
one of my favorite
you learn
lines.
later, like the way this episode sets up and the way it actually plays out is that Homer has that escape route because he actually is sane, and he accidentally proves it later on in the episode. And if you go with the initial part about him dropping off Barney, it doesn't play as well.
It takes away from that, yeah. I also like that it gives us a really great joke here in a minute, because we're about to meet, before we meet Michael Jackson, we'll just say, he gets checked in. I love the bit where Homer basically asks, how do you tell the insane from the not insane? And they give him a stamp on his hand that says insane, and basically like, because of this stamp. He gets put in his room with his new roommate, Michael Jackson, who he's never heard of. And then there's a bit where he's like, what do you mean you never heard of me? He's act shocked, and Homer's like, of course I've heard of you. What? I'd have had to live under a rock not to have heard of... What's your name again?
Then he starts naming off all of his hits, trying to see if Homer recognizes any of it.
Yeah. Motown? Thriller? Who?
The Beat? Or Beat It? Sorry, I'm sorry. I was thinking of Doug. I was thinking of Doug, my bad.
Oh, killer tofu. E-I.
I need more allowance, you'll lay.
Yeah, it would have been dope if they had the Beats crossover and do a guest appearance in The Simpsons. Now I'm going to fantasize about that for a while. But
we'll just
Michael
do that on
Jackson,
our Doug podcast in the future.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, apparently we're doing that. I'm fine with it. Let's do it. So anyway, yeah, we meet Michael Jackson, and he doesn't know who he is, but that's okay, because this is like a 300-pound bald white guy. And it does sound an awful lot like Michael Jackson, but the only reason Homer believes him is because he has no idea who Michael Jackson is. So basically, when this guy tells him, yeah, I'm Michael Jackson, I made all these songs, and I can moonwalk, which he hilariously tries to teach Homer to moonwalk, and it just does not work at all.
Homer ends up walking forwards.
Yeah.
Then you get a classic, go!
But yeah, the pink shirt joke that I really liked is whenever they're talking about how he got in here, Homer's like, well, I was put in here because I wore a pink shirt. And Michael Jackson is like, I totally understand. They think I dress weird too. And Homer's like, well, what did you wear? Just one white glove with rhinestones on it.
And then Homer puts his finger in between his lips and does a little...
But yeah, so again, this is a really great scene. It's a really fun moment when we meet Michael Jackson. And again, we talked about it earlier. Michael Jackson only does the speaking roles here. Whenever he starts to sing Billie Jean or any of the other songs that he sings on this episode, it's actually a voice impersonator, which another little fun fact about that is Michael Jackson also really liked that idea because he was able to he basically was trying to trick his family, his brother specifically, that was him singing, and it was actually just an impersonator. I thought that was kind of cool. Also, when Michael Jackson was talking to Matt Groening about coming on the show, he also agreed to write a song for The Simpsons, which ended up becoming Do the Bartman, which I love that song when I was a kid. And if you listen to it, like I just re-listened to it today after I read that, and I was shocked because it so obviously sounds like a Michael Jackson song after you listen to it.
I just would have assumed it would have been the song at the end of the episode, but that's really cool, actually.
Yeah, I thought that was really neat as well. That there's a whole music, it's like a 5-minute music video online if you haven't seen it. It's really fun. Bart essentially disrupts a school assembly where they're like supposed to be like a dance recital, and he ends up taking it over and giving a little bit of freshness.
I think I remember watching that years ago. I forgot. I think I've actually seen that before. Yeah,
it's still on the interweb if you want to look it up. It's pretty cool. Also, loosely related, this is kind of old news at this point. This came out a while back, several months ago, way back all the way last year in 2016. Did you know Michael Jackson wrote the majority of the music for Sonic the Hedgehog 3, uncredited?
I had no idea, and I was a huge Sonic nerd when I was a kid.
Yeah, I just discovered that not too long ago. One of my buddy, shout out to @ChrisNovembrino over there on Twitter. He and I do the Lucha of the Hidden Temple, Lucha Underground review podcast at Voices of Wrestling. And he's a music nut. He's in a band. He's a badass on the guitar. He plays a lot of cool music and shit. And he nerds out on the internet about music stuff. And he came across that tidbit and shared it with me not too long ago. And man, that's some really cool stuff to think about. And if you go back and listen to the Sonic 3 music, again, it kind of hits you like, holy shit, that sounds like a Michael Jackson song.
I've played the crap out of that game over and over again, so...
Yeah, it was a good one. It was it was the first one where you could actually really play 2-player, because in the second one you could do it, but like it was just really bad because it was hard to keep Tails up with Sonic, and
Tails
they balanced
would die
it
all the time.
all the time. They balanced it a lot better in the third Sonic.
I mean, Miles would die all the time.
Exactly.
So then do we get the cut in where the flashes back to the Simpsons and their household?
Yeah, this is actually where we get back and we see them watching Itchy and Scratchy, Bart and Lisa specifically, and we get another reminder from Lisa to Bart talking about how much she saw that even though they killed each other after, I think it was Scratchy really enjoyed the gift he got for his birthday.
I was going to say, Scratchy was wearing the sharpest of party hats, by the way, too, because his head goes right through the party hat, and it's just like, oh my goodness. That is sharp.
Yeah, that was funny. I also like Bart's response. All right, if you want that once-a-year empty gesture, then you've got it.
Just trying to kill the mojo and the feeling in the room, making it seem like it's not a big deal at all when it is.
Again, to Lisa, this is the biggest of deals, but it seems that she's the only one that really even notices her birthday, let alone cares about it.
Which I can understand why Bart has the mentality that he does at this point, because when people tell me the same thing over and over again, it makes me less inclined to actually want to do it.
Well, that's just because you're a stubborn asshole.
But I just like, the more people harp on things, the more I'm just like, oh my god, like I understand it's important. You don't have to remind me every 5 minutes. I already know.
With that, everyone please tweet at @thewiz_kid23 and tell that motherfucker to buy an insulin pump.
No.
We cut back to Homer at the mental institution here, and Michael Jackson is giving him a tour around and introducing him to some people. I like he introduces him to a guy who's a savant, and he's like, yeah, he doesn't say anything, but he can multiply any two numbers you give him. So Homer gives him 5 and 9. And he's impressed when he gets 45.
He gets it instantaneously, so good for him.
Would you not?
Yeah, I would. Honestly, I think a lot of people wouldn't.
I feel like the first 10, like, I feel like, I don't know, like, if you haven't memorized the, like, 9, up to 9 by 9, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm being an asshole, I don't know.
I think there's a lot of stupid people out there.
Ouch, you just made it implied that anyone who doesn't know 5 times 9 is stupid. I wouldn't even said that. Speaking of people being assholes, we get introduced to the chief over at the mental institution, and he hasn't spoken or moved in years, but Homer says, "Hey, chief," and Chief replies, "Hello," and is like, finally, somebody said something, or someone spoke to me.
Which, wasn't this a reference to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
You know, if it was, I didn't actually catch it.
And, like, I looked for the notes in my companion guide, and it didn't say anything, but I noticed every once in a while they'll miss an obvious one, because there's that big chief guy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
You know, man, I haven't seen that movie in so long. I'm struggling to even remember what it... I know it's really funny, and I think, wasn't it Robin Williams, isn't it?
No, Jack Nicholson.
Okay, then I'm not even thinking of the right movie. I don't even know. I'll have to look that one up.
Yeah, I think it is him. Nice little tidbit in there about that, but I'm pretty sure it's from that movie.
Well, Homer is getting upset. He wants to call his family, but he doesn't know what to say, so he has Michael call for him. And at first he's talking with Bart, and he's like, "Oh, what, is Elvis there with you too?" He's like, "Well, he could be. It's a big hospital." He mentions to Bart, like, you know, you need to help out, or what do you want, your dad to end up with a lobotomy? And Bart actually kind of fantasizes about this for a second, and he has a scenario where he's basically destroyed the house. Homer is just sitting there calmly, you know, "That's okay, boy." But Bart is hesitant because he's sure there's a downside he's not considering.
Like, you know, part of your head being chopped off.
They announce to Marge that Dad's in a mental institution, and Marge says, "Oh God, my mom was right."
Good old Mrs. Bouvier.
Homer also has a vulnerable moment in the next scene where he's about to go to bed for the first time in the mental institution with Michael Jackson, and he admits to Michael, even though it's hard for him to admit it to another man, that he's scared. And Michael kind of settles Homer to sleep, and I love when he starts to nod off. I think the first thing he says is pancakes, and then football, and then boobies before he passes out to sleep.
I say those same 3 things every night.
I could leave the pancakes for football.
I think we should establish that while Michael Jackson was on the phone with Bart quizzes him about if he's actually Michael Jackson, and so we can establish that there's already people doubting that he's actually the real Michael Jackson, because that's a big thing in this whole episode, is whether or not even the voice acting and singing at parts is actually Michael Jackson or not, as you've alluded to already a few times.
Yeah, very, very good point. Because again, this wasn't announced that Michael Jackson was the voice, as you had mentioned. Like, yeah, so there is a lot of there's supposed to be a degree of questioning what is actually going on. Like, who's crazy, who's not crazy? Are these people actually existing? Like, there is some blur to this episode that's intentional, and it's really well done.
I remember the first few times I'd seen this episode as a younger child, I was never really sure, especially when it doesn't say Michael Jackson in the credits. You're just kind of like, what? When you can't just get on Google and look it up at the time.
Totally. I remember watching them on the WB33 back in the day when they would do the reruns every day after school. And I remember watching this episode and thinking, my God, that sounds like Michael Jackson. And looking at the credits and being like, oh man, what a great impersonator. Yeah. and no idea. Just thinking, like, man, that guy was spot on. So the next day we see Homer in therapy, and he's doing a group therapy, and the psychiatrist is asking some questions to the person in there with him, and he's basically talking about how he felt like one day he just all of a sudden he felt like everything was just too much, and he couldn't go out and handle the world anymore. And Homer's like, what was wrong? Was the door locked? No, I just couldn't deal with it. Was it raining? No, I just couldn't get out there and go. Were you out of gas? And finally, the psychiatrist is like, Homer, he's agoraphobic. It means that he's afraid of large spaces.
And that's when the guy says, like, I couldn't even get in my car and drive somewhere. And Homer goes, he just pauses for a second. He goes, were you out of gas? And everyone looks at Homer, and then he says under his breath, he goes, baby.
Yeah. And right after that's the scene we talked about where they actually get the hospital gets a call from Marge, and he's talking about how, I assure you, me and my son Bart, we're real people. And you're like, oh my God, there is a Bart?
Yeah, they said if you didn't ask him about our son Bart all the time, then he would sound like a sane person.
Yes, that's what it was. Thank you. And yeah, the doctor's surprised that there really was a Bart. He really wasn't crazy this whole time after all. And they let him know that under his professional opinion, he is not a threat to himself or others. To which Homer replies, that's the most flattering thing anyone has ever said to me. Can I get that in writing?
And they actually had a little certificate for him.
A certificate that said not insane. That'll come up later again. One of the best gags.
But previously on the last scene, when Marge was on the phone with the psychiatrist or whoever she was talking to, it cuts to Lisa in the kitchen, moping at the table, singing happy birthday to herself.
To the most overlooked middle child.
And I actually wrote a note down here where I was like, Lisa is having the stereotypical middle child syndrome going on right here. The Marsha moment, so to speak.
I feel like it's a little more justified here, though, than it was with
Jan. That's what I was just going to say. It's a little more justified in this sense.
Because Jan was just a whiny bitch a lot of the times on that show. Because Marsha, let's be honest, Marsha was hot, man. Like, it is what it is, but... Marsha. Mm-hmm. But... Go ahead.
I was going to say, as I get older, I've noticed that I sympathize a little bit more with the things that Lisa talks about and goes through. But I already have a I already have a prejudice against Lisa because I've never liked her as a character for the most part. I mean, obviously I like her. She's part of the family, and she has some really great moments. We've already seen a whole bunch of good moments with her and Marge. But it was like, when I first started watching this, I was mad at Lisa for feeling this way because it's like, you should expect this out of Bart. But the older I get, the more I'm like, okay, well, I understand why you're feeling this way, and these are very complicated emotions for an 8-year-old.
Yeah, I never had a disdain for Lisa like you did. I never connected to her when I was younger, but I agree with you on these later watch-throughs. She makes some brilliant points, and sometimes she has the most poignant lines of the entire series, season, episode, whatever she's involved with. She kills it.
One of the first things I remember hearing her say when I was younger that actually connected with me is when she makes a joke about how there's a lot of background noise in shows just to fill the gap, and it's a lot of stuff you don't even notice. And it's a scene where she's talking to Bart in the TV room and Homer's sitting on the couch, and in the background you see Homer walk to the back door or the front door, whatever door it was at the time, and it just made me laugh because I was like, oh, okay, she's like the fourth wall breaker, so to speak.
Yeah, it was her Deadpool moment.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the first time where I was like, maybe you're not so bad, Lisa. It's not, I hate saying that I disdain her, because it's not that, it's just her character, for the most part, has always bored me. And you know how I feel about this, you know how you feel about it. The episode centered around Lisa most of the time. When you're younger, you're just like, ugh, a Lisa episode, or ugh, a Marge episode.
Yeah, I don't think that as children we had the heart to appreciate how much heart was in the show. And I think now that we have more life experience and we've been through some shit, man, like, you know, back in Nam and all that good stuff. But now that we've seen more of the quote unquote real world, if you will, I think Lisa's perspective makes a lot more sense, because even though she's not the youngest Simpson, but the youngest Simpson that has a speaking role a lot of times, she often, again, is the most wise and says some things with a perspective that I don't think any 8-year-old actually has.
Yeah, well, we're about to really get into that in the next episode.
And we'll talk about it, I'm sure, but that episode I actually really enjoyed more than more than I thought I was going to, based on what I remembered from it. But getting back to Stark-Raving Dad, we get to the point where Homer is on his way home, and he lets Michael Jackson know, and he's going to miss him, and and he actually says, I wish I could take you with me, buddy. He's like, well, actually, I could go. I'm here on volunteer basis. Like, I don't have to stay here. And Homer lets Bart know that he's going to bringing home Michael Jackson, and he says, oh, it's cute. He knows who you are.
I like when Michael Jackson says, I'm a vegetarian and I don't drink. When Homer...
Oh, yeah, Homer asked Bart to get some cold cuts and some beer in the fridge, and Michael Jackson lets him know he's a vegetarian and
I don't drink.
Yeah, are you sure you're here by choice?
Are you sure you're here voluntarily?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a great line. You're absolutely right. He also explicitly tells Bart not to tell anyone that Michael Jackson is coming to their house. He promises not to even tell Milhouse.
I bet he'll stand by that. I bet he'll actually listen to Homer this time.
Oh, I'm so sure. He does, to be fair. Bart tries to fight his own hand for about 4 seconds before he calls Milhouse, asks if Milhouse verifies that Milhouse can keep a secret. He can't. Fuck it, he's going to tell him anyway. So he tells Milhouse that Michael Jackson is coming, and in a few moments, everybody in town is on their way, including Apu from the Quickie Mart, who actually closes his store for the very first time. And I love it. Their sign, instead of having an open and close sign, on the side we see, it says, we never close. And when he flips it, it says, close first time ever.
Have we already had the moment where Lisa is writing a note on her stationery? I think that's happening during this time while everyone's getting crowded around outside. Lisa's still moping around in her room upstairs, and she's writing a note saying, I'm writing this to you on the stationery that Mom and Dad got me for my birthday. And I thought, oh, God, I guess Lisa might really enjoy that gift, but what a terrible gift for your
Oh, I know, stationery. God awful. Maybe she used it to write her award-winning essay in the next episode, though. Who
there
knows?
You go.
But yeah, so everyone in town is outside of the Simpsons' home except for Lisa, who's writing her hate. At this point, I think it's basically disowning Bart, saying, like, even... actually, I really like that line. She's telling Bart that because he forgot her birthday, that they will now be brother and sister in name only. She even goes as far as to say that if a professional told me I might hug, or told me to, I would consider hugging you far down the road at a family get-together, but it would only be for show.
Which doesn't that, like, again, as you alluded to earlier, when you think about family reunions and the awkwardness at some of those, that's like that paints a very vivid picture in your brain. I can see that happening between siblings that haven't spoken in forever, but they just put on a show where they're like, hey.
Yeah, we don't want to upset Grandma,
yeah.
so we'll just pretend like we're not... We'll pretend like we're somewhat friendly, but we know
so
we both
awkward.
know we'll never talk again until next Christmas, that we're both here, or
It's
whatever.
so awkward.
Yeah, I don't really have to deal with that, to be honest. I don't really have much of an extended family at all. Very little family in general, to be honest. But so I don't really have to deal with that a whole lot, I guess, is the upside of that.
Yeah, you got a lot of family that's not necessarily your immediate family.
I have a lot of friends that I consider family. I don't have a lot of blood, but that's, you know, it's a lot easier that way because, I mean, all of the people that I spend the holidays with are people that I actually want to see. as opposed to a lot of the times, like you just alluded to. I think a lot of people, unfortunately, spend time with people that, what do they say about family? They're friends that you, or they're people you have to be friends with that you would otherwise never consider being friends with. It's a dark look at it, I realize, but it's kind of true sometimes.
But back to The Simpsons for now.
Back to The Simpsons for now. Michael Jackson shows up at the Simpsons home, and immediately the townspeople, including Mayor Quimby, who had just renamed the Dalai Lama Expressway from their last most famous visitor to town to the Michael Jackson Expressway. But everybody immediately is like, oh my god, he's not Michael Jackson, he's 300 pounds. He's white. He's dressed without flair. And everyone gets pissed. They tell Bart not to show himself around here again because he was the one that kind of instigated everything. And Bart's obviously kind of pissed off. And to make matters worse, Lisa is pissed off at Bart. So, hanging out inside, he starts to talk to quote-unquote Michael Jackson. And you can tell that Bart is just like, yeah, whatever, crazy man. But I really like this line where he basically offers to help Bart write a song for Lisa to make things right for her birthday. And they have a whole thing about how, like, that's what he used to do and he didn't have any money and wanted to give somebody a present. Shows that you care. He basically tells Bart, who's being negative, like, you're not Michael Jackson, what the hell, man? That, hey, you can either believe that Michael Jackson is in some recording studio out in Los Angeles, or you can accept that I'm standing here right now with you, ready to help you write a song. Your choice. And I thought that's a really good point and just kind of a big picture sort of statement real quick. Like, and kind of, in my mind at least, sort of ties into the theme of this episode that we talk about, like, you know, what's crazy, what's real, what's not, is this Michael Jackson, is not, and I think a lot of times people get too hung up on that sort of stuff. And obviously, I don't think in real life anybody's going to believe that Michael Jackson is a 300-pound white man who doesn't dress with flair. But there are people out there nowadays that believe Michael Jackson's still alive and the whole death thing was a hoax. So maybe I'm wrong. There's probably somebody that believes that. What I mean to say, though, is just the positive mental outlook on life that this guy is kind of preaching here. A lot of times your perception changes your reality. And obviously, I'm not the type of person, I very much believe in logic and science. So no, I do not believe that if you think something will be, it will be. I think that you have to go out there and do it yourself. But I do think it's important to not focus on all the shit you're going through, but to look at the positive things in life and to strive to move towards those things. And I think that's what this statement essentially is trying to say.
Well, and to touch on what you were saying, I do think it helps you a little bit because you have to have that mentality. Everything starts with a thought. The good and the bad all starts with a thought. And if you tell yourself no all the time, then you're not going to do it. You're not going to try. But to, again, touch on what you were saying, if you give yourself that positive thought, then you can take that first step. You're more willing to take that first step towards that positive outcome. So, I mean, it can start with a thought. I mean, that's pretty much the whole idea behind the movie Inception right there. But do what?
No, that's a good point.
You have to have, and I think to play on what this episode is doing, it makes it. We always talk about extremes in this. I've talked about it in the past where Homer has to have everything he wants so that when he gives it up for his family at the end of every episode, it means he made the ultimate sacrifice. And this kind of plays into that, where you're talking about, obviously he's not some 300-pound man, Michael Jackson, but they drew a 300-pound man to make it the extreme opposite of what Michael Jackson is, to play into what you were getting with the theme of this episode, and that it doesn't matter. It's all about what you perceive and what you believe. And it plays off of it more. If he was just like some skinny yellow character, then it's like, okay, well, that could be kind of feasible in some sense to make similarities between him and the actual Michael Jackson. But to make him this really big, fat, huge dude that just sounds the same, like, it plays into it a lot more, I think.
Well said, man. I think that's brilliant, and I think that's spot on. Exactly what I was trying to get across, and just a really important thing. If you take away nothing from this episode today, guys, this podcast, please take that away. Just have a positive mental outlook on life and a lot of things. Everything starts with an idea, good or bad. That's a really, I like that, man. I like that a lot.
We just got real, sucker.
And Bart gets real too, and I like this. This is, again, Bart. I've said before, Bart's my favorite character, and I love these moments for him because he does choose the positive side of things. He tells Michael to grab the piano and let's get going. He's gonna write Lisa a song, and it's a beautiful song.
Yes, the first
Lisa,
song.
your teeth are big and green. Lisa, you smell like gasoline. Lisa, Lisa, you are my sister.
Your
My birthday, you
I missed her.
Yeah, her birthday, I missed it.
It's just sad that I did that off the top of my head, and I assume you kind of did too.
Yeah, pretty much.
I've sang that song my entire life, pretty much, I think.
See, I actually, that one is funny, but I really love the actual Lisa birthday song we're gonna get to here momentarily.
Oh,
and
that
it's one
always gets stuck in our
sticks in my
heads.
head, but I don't mind. Like, I've been singing it all day. I also, at one point, they start to write the song, and Michael throws in a ha-ha type of thing, and Bart, yeah, that was better. And Bart's like, you're just putting that in because it's commercial, and they do a little chuckle. That made me laugh.
Which, was that actually Michael Jackson, or was that the sound-alike that did that part?
Oh, that's a good question. Is that considered speaking or singing? I do not know.
Yeah. I assume since this is like his catchphrase. Actually, the fact that it's his catchphrase might play into it not being him. I don't know.
It's hard to tell, and it ties even more into the mystery of this episode. But then we get this Bart and Michael coming up with a better song. Michael helps guide Bart. They observe her. They talk about things that happen when you're 8. So they come up with a much better song, the song we were just talking about, the one that gets stuck in your head every single time, and it's sung beautifully by the late, great Michael Jackson impersonator.
We don't know if they're dead or not.
It's your birthday. God blessed you this day. You gave me the gift of a little sister, and I'm proud of you today.
Lisa, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa. Lisa, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa.
Wish you love and goodwill. I wish you peace and joy. I wish you better than your heart desires. And your first kiss from a boy.
Which has already happened.
But yeah, then they repeat the chorus, and that just gets stuck in your head. That's one of the few times you'll hear me sing on this show, because I really like this song, and sorry if I just murdered your ears. We immediately after that get the real voice of this 300-pound white man, not of the name Michael Jackson, but by the name of Leon Kapowski, a bricklayer from New Jersey.
Oh.
He was a very angry man, until one day he just started talking like Michael Jackson, or talking like this. And it just made everyone nice, and everything he said happy, and it made it so that he could only do good in this world.
Again, started with just a thought.
It did. And to make a tired point, which one of us is truly crazy? And then my favorite part, Homer, not me, I have this. And he holds up his not certified, not insane plaque that he got.
Good old selfish Homer.
Then we get Leon Kompowski walking down the street, which sounds a lot closer to how I just sang that version of the song. He starts singing the song they just wrote in his actual natural voice.
Birthday. I wish you love and goodwill.
And I love that they all thank Michael Jackson as he walks away, and Lisa shouts out, "You're a credit to dementia."
God. Some of the last lines of each episode are always the best and funniest, in my opinion. Maybe not the funniest,
absolutely.
but they're perfect timing and spot on. What I wanted to touch on is, before they start singing the actual song, Bart dumps out the trash in the trash can and starts playing Lisa's trash can like a drum. And he's really...
Oh, yeah, I like that.
He's really good at it. And I wanted to point out that way down the line in a future season, Bart actually plays the drums, and he's brilliant at it. And it actually bugs Lisa because he gets to play with like jazz bands and things like that. So...
Yeah, it's specifically that like two-handed like jazz drum that they do, like poetry reading style drum that people do.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say that ties in and very far down the road.
Seeds planted.
Yep.
So... We already touched on it. He was on the credits as John J. Smith. This is the second and last time a celebrity would be allowed to use a pseudonym. Rich, was there anything else that you or that book wanted to point out about the episode Stark-Raving Dad?
Well, here in The Simpsons, A Complete Guide to Our Favorite Family, there's just two things I wanted to point out that it talks about. It talks about the signs in the crazy house. which the big one is the main sign that says, "You don't have to be crazy to be committed here, but it helps." And there's another one that says, "Your mother isn't committed here, so clean up after yourself." And then when Marge calls to try to get through to Homer, figure out what's going on, she's put on hold at one point when she's calling the crazy house. And you can actually hear a version of Crazy by Patsy Cline. But it's like, when you actually hear the song while she's on hold, it makes her start crying. And it sucks, but it's actually a little funny moment.
That's awesome. I just wanted to say one quick one is at the very end of the episode when they wake up Lisa and it shows the rest of the family waking up because they start jamming to the Lisa's birthday song. There's a real quick shot of Maggie waking up and she's actually cuddling one of the bunnies from Matt Groening's other comic strip From Hell. I just thought that was kind of a fun little tie-in. Even cooler, this was not supposed to be the last we saw of Leon Kapowski. There is a sequel planned for this episode. It was actually written. The script was written for it, and it was supposed to have Prince this time, Michael Jackson's biggest musical rival, who has also now unfortunately passed away this year. But Prince was supposed to be the voice of Leon Kapowski for a second episode, but unfortunately Prince himself denied the script. He did not care for it, and he did not want to do it.
Wonder if he even saw the first episode.
I don't know, man. There's a really I'm not trying to speak ill of this. I don't even think this is speaking ill. I'm not speaking ill of the dead whatsoever. I love Prince's music for sure. Dude, questionable at times on his personality, but I didn't know him personally, so I mean that was just kind of the image he had.
Of him, at least.
Right, but I do have to say, if you haven't heard it, Kevin Smith, yes, the fat guy that directed Clerks, who I absolutely fucking love, but Kevin Smith, in his very first Evening with Kevin Smith DVD, tells this phenomenal story about a time that he was actually working with Prince, and Kevin Smith actually shot an entire documentary about Prince that is in Prince's vault somewhere because he didn't ever want to release it, but it's just, he tells a lot of interesting stories about just Prince being kind of crazy celebrity style. It's nothing that, again, he never speaks ill of him, but he had some questionable personality traits, to say the very least.
Yeah, usually the brilliant ones, that just goes hand in hand.
Totally. Absolutely. All right, man. I think that's going to do it for Stark-Raving Dad, but we still have Mr. Lisa Goes to Washington. But before we get to that, let's hear from one of our Podern family members.
Would you like to increase the size of your penis up to 6 inches?
What's up, everybody? This is your man, Adam, from the Mike Kings podcast, telling you guys to give us a listen on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and follow us on Twitter at the Mike Kings. We talk about pop culture, movies, games, TV shows, anything that's interesting to today's millennials. Give us a listen. I promise you'll enjoy it. We appreciate it. Thank you.
So let's get on to Mr. Lisa Goes to Washington, which debuted on September 26th of 1991. The chalkboard gag for this episode was spitwads are not free speech, and the couch was, they all jump into the couch and they crush the dog, Santa's little helper, which I have to say, this one hits a little close to home to me, because as you very well know, our listeners don't, but I've got a dog named Nowie, and she is the sweetest damn thing ever. But she has this habit where she loves to burrow under blankets. So a lot of times you'll see like what looks like just like a blanket sitting on the couch, and it, you know, you just think it's a blanket, so you kind of plop down. You can't do that in my house. Like, you've got to check anything like coats, blankets, shirts, anything that you leave lying about. My dog is likely to bury herself underneath. So it's cute and it's adorable, but like I would be lying if I said I have not sat on her on more than one occasion.
I've done it once or twice too, I think.
It's pretty common, unfortunately. And she's so sweet. She doesn't she barely yelps. She's like, she doesn't want to like inconvenience you, but like
I think she's just too lazy to give a fuck.
That might be it too. She's a lazy fuck. But yeah, this episode opens up on Homer opening junk mail. And he's like, haha, yeah, I may have won, blah, blah, whatever. Oh, Homer Simpsoid, I'll let him know. But he gets one of those, like, shitty, it looks like it's a check written out to you, but it's very clearly not. And this one's for $1 million. And he gets super excited, and he runs it down to the check cashing place. And the guy has to explain to him, like, no, sir, it's not real. Well, how do you know? Well, you see all the parts where it says void, void, void.
This
and
is not a
right
check.
Here where it says, Mr. Banker, do not honor.
This is not a check.
And then Lisa points out that she doesn't think that real checks use exclamation points. They did, however, end up with a Reader's Digest, which Homer immediately turns away because he's like, I've never read a magazine in my life and I'm not going to start now.
I want to point out something here right off the bat. Homer's illiteracy causes him to start reading. Like, the fact that he could not read everything on this check got him this free issue of Reader's Digest, which he will fall in love with and start reading like crazy. So I thought that was kind of a cool, not a catch-22, but it's a juxtaposition to one another. That the fact that he couldn't read caused him to inadvertently start reading.
I didn't think of it like that, but yeah, you're right, because he did not take the time to read. He got really into reading. It's kind of interesting. I really like the little gag they did here, where it started with Homer reading one of the comics to get him and kind of get his feet wet, so to speak. And the comic was making fun of women drivers, to which Homer made it like, oh, look, it makes a great point. And Marge gets mad and is like, statistics show that women are just as safe of drivers as men, which obviously is made up. But
Actually, she says are more safe drivers than men.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. But I like that they kind of make a joke at themselves here, because Homer says something along the lines of like, oh, Marge, cartoons don't actually mean anything. It's all for just cheap laughs. And at this very moment, he stands up and right in the, essentially where the camera would be if this were an actual show, right on screen is his butt crack is smack dab in the middle, and everybody giggles.
Proving their own point.
You had mentioned being illiterate, and actually it's kind of funny because Homer's reading at work and he's caught on camera, and Mr. Burns specifically tells Smithers, what? That position's specifically for an illiterate.
Yeah. Which he's the safety inspector, so that's awful.
It plays into the idea of it might not be on the up and up at the nuclear power plant.
Oh, you're killing me, Smalls.
So Homer is really getting into reading to the point where he actually dogs the kids for wasting their minds watching that idiot box, the television, and encourages them to read.
Which he's spot on, because you don't actually see the TV, but you hear the TV, and they say it's a Troy McClure movie, and again, it's not Phil Hartman doing the voice of Troy McClure.
Ugh. I hate when they do that.
Yeah, exactly. So Homer knows what he's talking about in this scene for once.
There you go. He actually makes them sit around and he reads a story, one of the many of the hundreds that they cram into this pocket-sized magazine. He starts reading the story and Homer gets really sucked in. Like, oh, it's something about like the guy's in a cave or something, he might not get out alive. And they're like, Homer, obviously he gets out alive if he wrote the story. And he's like, don't you be so sure about that. And he flips ahead and he's like, oh, he did.
Aw. I like when he's in bed and the scene here in the future, and you can see the article he's reading, and it says, they call me Dr. Soybean. And I was just like, what the fuck is he reading?
I like that Marge starts to get frisky with Homer, and Homer, like, hold on a second, and he looks up, like, 7 tips to spice up your relationship, and then he's like, Marge, you look lovely tonight. If you would like me to wear any costumes, let me know.
Hey, at least he's reading.
Hey man, you gotta keep your shit fresh when you're married. That shit's important. Good for them. At the following morning at the breakfast table, Homer is getting really excited because there's a chance to win a trip to Washington D.C., but then he gets really disappointed because it's just for kids.
All expense paid.
I actually really feel for Homer on this because I am constantly of the like mindset, like I'm very childlike. I'll totally admit it. I like playing games, and like I'm still very much in the mode where, like, if I don't get my daily playtime, I'm a total grouch. But, like, I see things like summer camps and shit like that. I'm like, oh my god, that looks so rad. And then it turns out that they're for kids. And I'm like, fuck, I'm way older than 12. Which actually, there's kind of a cool thing I saw I'll have to show you. There actually is somebody that made, like, a summer camp for adults, essentially. And it really is like the old school style of summer camp where you like go for a week and you stay in the bunks, and there's like, I don't know if they break it down with like guys and gals bunks, but I imagine there's at least some sort of like hesitance against like boning in front of everyone. I'm not really sure on that part. Maybe not. That would make it better. But
that'd be like a real summer camp.
Then it'd be like a real, well, no, if it was a real summer camp, you have to like go to like the back of the chapel or like the back of the gymnasium to find a spot to make out and whatnot. But
Good panty raid.
Panty raid. But yeah, they actually do they've got like flag football and all like the summery campy type of games that you do. And I don't know how expensive it is, but that sounds dope as fuck to me. I would totally do that. But Lisa gets really excited about the article that Homer discarded because it's an essay contest about America and you could win an all-expense trip to Washington, D.C.
I just like the fact that Homer immediately throws the whole entire magazine away when he realizes that he can't do it.
Yeah, he's like, I'm done with this.
He's so upset. He's already been obsessed with this little book and he just chucks it in the trash immediately like it's nothing.
Possibly my favorite line in this episode is when Marge encourages Bart to also join the contest, and Bart's like, oh, that's a sweet thought, but we all know that this is the pony to bet on, and he pats Lisa as he says it. Marge also is trying to help inspire Lisa, and she tells Lisa, when I was a little girl, I used to go on a bike ride whenever I'd need to think. Do kids still ride bikes? Of course, Mom. Oh, I just didn't know if that would still be something that kids consider to be cool. Do kids still say cool? Yes, Mom. I thought that was good. Lisa does take a bike ride. She drives out to the woods where she screams out, all right, America, inspire me.
Well, there's the scene right before this that you were alluding to where Marge was talking to Lisa in her room. And I wanted to point something out about Lisa's room. On her dresser drawer, there's a picture of a cat and then a picture of a dog. And you can't see them because it's not HD at this time. No one's going to go back and remaster these episodes. But the picture of the dog very much looks like Santa's little helper. The picture of the cat looks like some kind of orange cat. And when I first saw it, I thought, oh, maybe that's Snowball 1. And I was like, no, we see Snowball 1 in the future, and it just looks like a different shade of Snowball 2. So I don't know who this cat is that Lisa has a picture of on her desk or on her dresser drawer, but
Snowball Prime?
By that. Maybe so. Snowball Patient Zero? I don't know.
There you go. I'm not sure.
Garfield, since it was orange?
Yeah, that was actually my first thought was Garfield, but I was like, it's a weird crossover. So Lisa does get inspired. She writes her essay, and she has her dad take her to the Veterans Hall. And I love when she thanks her father for the ride. Homer's like, oh, no problem, honey. There's nothing I wouldn't do for that magazine. At the Veterans Hall, Nelson is reading his essay that he wrote, and
Doesn't it get you jazzed up? It's, so burn the flag if you must, but before you do, you better burn a few other things. You better burn your shirt and your pants. Be sure to burn your TV and car. Oh, yes, and don't forget to burn your house, because none of those things could exist without 6 white stripes, 7 red stripes, and a hell of a lot of stars.
Yeah, that was good. I really like that. That made me. That's a great Nelson moment. I don't know why that made me laugh so much, but it's just Nelson, man.
I wanted to point out that this episode, I actually saw this on TV a few days ago. Actually, I didn't realize it was the one we were going to be doing this week, but I was just watching on FXX when they were playing a lot of Simpsons episodes, and this one popped up, and I had made a mental note so that we could talk about it in the future. I just didn't realize it'd be so close. This episode is very meaningful with today, wouldn't you say, with all the stuff going on about sitting down during the national anthem and the whole concept of patriotism in general is a lot more of a touchy subject today. And it's just, again, another reference to how crazy and cool the Simpsons are, and how something that was done back in 1991 can have so much meaning here in now 2017.
Well, I mean, with the corruption as well, absolutely. I mean,
that's exactly
the lobbyism that we get into at the end of this episode is still very, very much a major issue today that a lot more people are aware of just because of things like the internet. But man, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen when Trump takes office in terms of the money in politics, but it doesn't seem like he's the type of person that's going to take the money out of politics. So it seems bad to me, but
by the time this episode airs, he'll be in power.
Mm-hmm. You sure will. Well,
this episode may never air.
This episode may never air, actually. I hope this isn't lost to the chronicles of humanity. I don't want some ancient some future alien civilization to come across us, and this is their impression of what humans were. Sorry.
To be fair, if there's an alien civilization, they're probably much more ancient than we are, so
true.
It's very possible.
True. Yeah, you've been watching the History Channel, haven't you, sir?
It's aliens.
Is that still a show? Is that even still on, Ancient Aliens? That show's ridiculous.
Oh no, I thought you were just talking about how every show on the History Channel, the South Park episode, was
it's all about aliens. Yeah.
Aliens were at the first Thanksgiving.
So Lisa does her actual really awesome essay that kicks ass and inspires, and it's so good that the judges don't believe an 8-year-old could have written it. So they went and had a little chat with Dad. Mr. Simpson, are you a professional writer? No. Are you interested in politics? Can you touch your nose? And then they go back to Lisa and say, after meeting your father, we decided to award you 5 extra points.
Which she was only off by 1 point from the max score.
She only got a 9 on organization instead of a 10, which was kind of funny. But
you think that's the one thing Lisa would get a 10 on, too, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I kind of thought so, too, actually. But, they didn't want to give her a perfect score. They wanted to leave her room to improve. I dig it. Homer says, who would have thought that reading and writing would have paid off? So the Simpsons are flying to Washington, D.C. There is a great scene on the plane where Homer asks for everything that you could possibly get for free and anything he forgot to ask for that is included. Bart is being an obnoxious 10-year-old, like the worst type of person to sit on a plane next to. He's like moving his seat back and forth, jamming the guy in behind him. The stewardess is all like, or whoever it was, one of the plane employees was like, I bet you want to come see the cockpit. And he goes in there. They ask him if they wanted to see where the coats get hung. And he's like, no thanks. I'd rather push this button. In which all the oxygen masks drop and everyone panics.
No, nobody panicked at first except Homer. And it's when Homer was like, we're all going to die. That's when everyone started panicking.
Then you're right. Between the two of them, they set off a panic.
Mm-hmm. I like when they actually land at the airport with the mishap with the sign with the limo driver.
Ooh, that guy has the same last name as us. Taxi!
Marge, the guy has the same last name as us. Which, to be fair, that's a common last name, so...
Yeah.
But it's funny, they're not used to the rich honestly, life, so they don't know. Yeah,
they've never experienced anything like that, so that was a good joke. I like that. They drive by the IRS and boo, and somebody leans out the window and is like, oh, boo yourself. They stay at the Watergate, and Bart does something that I may or may not have used to do all the fucking time when I was a kid. Yeah, he hits all of the buttons on the elevator right before somebody gets on it, which is the worst thing to do. I was never in a building that big, so it never screwed anybody quite like that. But like every time I go to a hotel and my parents weren't paying attention, I would try to like slap all the buttons when I got off, which I'm sure in hindsight, what a dick move on my part. I am sorry, everyone who had to deal with my inner Bart Simpson when I was a kid.
And that plays way back into the last episode. It all begins with a thought. This is one of the bad thoughts.
I remember one specific time, no idea where I was. We were traveling somewhere, I know that, but my parents were using a payphone because, I'm old and shit. And I was waiting, and we were supposed to be going to the parking garage, which there was an elevator for it, and they were using the payphone like on another floor. And I was being a shit kid and getting fucking anxious and like wanting to go and like being annoying and shit, and I kept holding the elevator, like trying to like encourage my parents to get off the phone and go, and I was like being obnoxious. And I don't know how long I held this elevator for, but at some point some dude with a bicycle came walking up the stairs pissed because he had been waiting for the elevator downstairs, and I had been holding it for so long that he ended up just having to walk upstairs carrying his bicycle, and he got so mad at my parents. It was actually really funny in hindsight, but again, I feel like a real dick. At the time, it was hilarious. As an adult, I was like, oh man, what an asshole I am.
Don't ride a bike in a building that only has one elevator.
Yeah, sorry, random dude from a town I don't remember.
In a place that may never have truly existed.
Yeah, true. Maybe it's a figment of my mind. Maybe this is all a figment of my mind.
Well, I want to bring up another point. Homer playing with the shoehorn. He's being controlled by Maggie.
What the fuck?
He's being controlled by Maggie. If you see, there's a scene where Homer's playing with a shoehorn inside of their hotel room. And he goes, shoe goes on, shoe goes off, shoe goes on, shoe goes off. And it cuts to the side, and Maggie is actually bobbing her head up and down at the same motion in the same time as Homer's putting his foot in and out of the shoe. And I think that
Dude, I gotta say on this one, you are stretching hard. Because babies in general, like every baby will just follow a repetitive motion.
Exactly.
That's
so she makes him keep doing it because she enjoys it so much. So that's why she keeps doing it over and over again, because she likes it so much. And out of everybody in the family, Homer's got the mind that's easiest to control, I would assume.
That's retarded. I'm sorry. You've slipped past the verge of no.
We haven't had a good Maggie controlling thing in a long time, so I had to get my two.
And we still haven't.
We had one in the one we were just talking about, and in the one I just spoke about.
The one from the last one I'll give you. That you're stretching, homie.
Nope,
You're stretching.
nope. And she does it later on in this episode again when she's hovering with a balloon.
Okay. You're ridiculous. So they get to the hotel room, and Bart calls first bedsies. Lisa says you can't do that, but then Bart kind of fucks with her. It's just kind of messed up when she has like an important thing to do, but he's like, fine, which bed do you want? Well, I want that one. Oh, okay, if that's the one you really want, I guess you can have it. Why? What'd you do to it? What did you do to it? And she like can't get over it. I love the times when Bart fucks with people without actually fucking with them. I think those are my favorite.
Well, mental fucking can almost be worse than physical fucking in most situations.
That sounds like it should go on a t-shirt.
I was gonna say, unless it's like rape or something.
Yeah, that should also be on the t-shirt. Mental fucking is worse than physical fucking unless it's rape.
Unless it's rape, God.
Yeah, those will be on sale on our website here
funny.
shortly. I'll let you know.
Go to popthreads.com.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, we have to cut
For
that
real,
part.
shout out to popthreads.com. They do not sell that shirt, though. Hey, if you want it, take it, man. But they do sell some pretty dope anything pop culture related that you want. Game of Thrones, Walking Dead, WWE,
Simpsons.
The Simpsons, obviously. Yeah, all of that stuff. Go check out popthreads.com. And hey, if you buy something, use the discount code Simpsons and you'll save 10% and you help us out. It's win-win. So go do that right now. And if they don't have the mental rape is worse than physical rape. No, I'm sorry. They don't have the mental sex is worse than physical sex, except for rape. Sure, we'll work on that. Sorry.
Just do it.
Just. This episode's getting dark.
For real, though, they should make a shirt that says it all starts with an idea.
Yeah, that's actually not bad.
That actually plays into what the last shirt you were just talking about, too. Oh, this is getting worse. Let's move on.
Let's move on. They love everything. They love everything about the hotel room, all the way down to the little mint they put on your pillow. I actually like that when the kids prank call Homer later. It turns out he had fallen asleep on his mint and it melted into his pillow. Stupid mint. They go the next day and they meet the woman from Reader's Digest who's running the children's essay contest. And they bring up the idea of how to increase your word power. Homer had read that article and said it was his favorite.
I really like the part about increasing your word power. That part was really, really, really good. And then the very next thing he talks to her about where he doesn't know what VIP stand for.
What's the I stand for again?
Important.
Mm-hmm. And the P.
And the V. Very. Okay, I have one more question. Person.
And the I again?
Those are two jokes that I've always remembered for a long time.
The VIP pass they get lets them go into the places of the White House that other people can't, including the bathtub, the president's bathroom, where Barbara Bush is actually taking a bath, and she's annoyed at first, but then is like, you guys have those stupid badges. All right, this is the president's bathroom, blah, 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 and starts telling him all about it from the tub. Not the only time that Barbara Bush will be on the show, either.
That's very true. They
also get to go see where the money is made, and no, there won't be free samples, which pisses Homer off.
Well, they said like, what, $18 million a day?
Something crazy, which is nuts. But...
So, it's more than that now.
Bart's playing in the actual spirit of St. Louis and gets in trouble. And I love the scene where they're at the National Monument, which is arguably phallic shaped, and Marge just can't stop giggling for some reason. But yeah, she just can't start giggling, and Homer actually, when she tells Homer why she's laughing, Homer tells her to grow up.
And that's
a great Marge moment.
And that's where Maggie's hovering with the balloon, as I alluded to earlier. It's all connected.
Dun dun dun. So, this is where we meet Bob Arnold, the Springfield congressman, and he's talking with one of those nasty lobbyists we talked about, actually a whale of a lobbyist. And that lobbyist wants to cut down the Springfield forest. Now, there's a great artist rendition where it shows like the forest in its current state and everything's all dark and terrible. And then it has the after photo where there's a bunch of tree stumps and a bunch of animals happily sitting on top of them.
But in the scene before that, the animals were being like crushed by the decrepit forest.
Right. They get to the point where they basically show this guy's corrupt and he's going to accept a bribe from this guy to get his bill through, but he doesn't do his dirty work in that office. He has a special place he'll go. At that moment, Lisa is brought up to be introduced to the congressman, and he, of course, wants to take the opportunity for a photo op. Now, something interesting about this from IMDb, Bob Arnold, in talking to Lisa, says, you could be a senator one day. There's quite a few women senators. Lisa responds that there are actually only two. And at the time, that was true. There was Nancy Kassenbaum-Baker and Barbara Mikulski. But what's kind of interesting, in a pseudo Simpsons did it moment, I'm stretching there myself, much like you did during that terrible Maggie.
She's controlling him with her mind. That's the purpose of the topic.
Less than a month after this episode aired, the sexual harassment allegations of Anita Hill, who at the time was testifying against Supreme Court nominee Clarence Thomas. And essentially this was a big scandal back in 1991. Again, this happened actually in October, whereas this episode aired in September. So it was literally a couple weeks later. And this was when a large light got shed on the sexual harassment issues that were going on in our Senate. And basically Anita Hill was being terribly harassed by Clarence Thomas and was actually speaking about it in court nationally. And all this information was coming out literally while he was waiting to be sworn in to the Supreme Court. Or wait, I'm not sworn in. He's waiting for his confirmation, I guess is how you would say it. But it's just kind of interesting that, again, Simpsons was so on the nose politically with this quick little joke. And it was right after that. 1992 is actually elected the Year of the Woman because it went from 2 in the Senate to 6. So it literally tripled in just 1 year.
Well, what I liked is that he's telling her that she could be a congressman or senator one day. And as we all know, in the future years, she actually becomes president. So this guy was a little off the mark.
Yeah, I believe right after Trump in
There
Simpsons lore. And you never know.
Where's Lisa Simpson? We need her.
I think we just need to get ready for that write-in ballot now. I guess it would be Yeardley. If Lisa Simpson got voted in, would Yeardley Smith by law or definition, how would that work if a fictional? We need to look that up. How would that work if a fictional character ever actually won a presidential election? I vote it goes to the voice actor. Personally,
I vote it goes to the creator.
Works for me. Yeah, there you go.
Or James L. Brooks for prez.
At this point, the photo op went well for the congressman, Bob Arnold, because the picture with Lisa's going around, and Barney is like, if I ever voted, it would be for him. Lisa's excited. It's the big day of her essay read, and she wants to get up and go to some woman's monument that no one's ever heard of, but she was on the highly unpopular 75-cent piece.
Understandable.
But what's kind of fun is Lisa goes there to be inspired, and unfortunately what happens is she ends up being crushed because that was Bob Arnold's secret meetup place to accept bribes because nobody ever goes there. And sure enough, Lisa sees Bob accept all that money, and he actually yells timber in response to if that bill will be going through, implying that forest is going to be destroyed, much like Lisa's confidence in America.
In democracy.
In democracy, you're right. She goes to the Lincoln Memorial for advice to be inspired, but everyone is already there asking Lincoln for help, so she decides to go to the Jefferson Memorial instead, which is far less busy. She's really upset. She's completely crushed in terms of her for her beautiful essay talking about the beauty of democracy. She doesn't believe her own essay, as she put it, so she actually rips it up. She writes a new essay, and it talks about the injustices and corruption as opposed to the beauty and wonder of our government. She actually says it spawned from a stagnant swamp and not much has changed.
Man, there's a lot of truth in what she says, but yeah, we're about to get to that.
There is a lot of truth that we'll talk about, but before we get there, real quick, we get Bart getting a massage, and he's obviously ordered all of the room service. Homer gets back, sees this, gets pissed, about to choke him, but then Bart reminds him that this is all expenses paid, so Homer grabs a massage too.
With a cigar. What I like is that Bart was tipping the guy $20. So I'm pretty sure if all expenses are paid, you still pay for the tip, though.
Yeah, that's true. But
just the
if
tip.
you pay $20 for all that, I would give him just the tip. But yeah, so Lisa reads this essay. She talks about the stagnant swamp. Nothing has changed. There's corruption. It's one nation under the dollar with liberty and justice for none. And it's a damning essay read for none other than Bob Arnold. It's kind of a fun scene where there's a phone call made to, it's like going up the ladder all the way to the president, talking about how there's a little girl losing faith in democracy. So they actually set up a sting operation where they have somebody try to bribe Bob Arnold to drill for oil in the Mount Rushmore itself.
And she actually, and because we didn't say this, Lisa literally calls out Bob Arnold in her speech.
Right.
So that's what caused it. But I wrote a note with, this is the fastest democracy has ever worked. which is the joke of the episode.
That's kind of the point. That's the whole joke of the episode is like it seems like it should be so easy.
It takes it like a couple hours to get this guy convicted and kicked out of office.
The little jingle singer even mentions in his song that she did all this in just one day. I also like that during the vote on the bill in Congress, one guy was like, shouldn't we add on an amendment to raise our pay? Which is hilarious, but sad because that happens almost every fucking time they vote on anything.
Piggybacking a raise onto a bill being passed.
We get President Bush himself signing the bill to remove Bob Arnold from office. And we also get one of Lisa's competitors reading his speech, and I love when he talks about where else but America, or possibly Canada, could somebody make their dream come true.
What I like is at one point you hear something in the newspaper or somebody talking about a story they read where they say, I hear Bob Arnold's already a born-again Christian in prison.
And right after that, they say, wow, the system really works. Or I can't believe the system's working. The only other thing I have a note on this one is at the end, the boy who won the essay contest, it was not Lisa. She gave up the $10,000 to stand her ground. And he gets the check, but he wants to give special recognition to Lisa for being so brave. Homer yells out, give her the check. Everyone starts laughing, and Homer's like, oh, I was serious.
That's a really funny moment, though.
And then Bart, who has been fed up with the jingle song singer singing basically the same song over and over and over again with just slightly different words. So he takes out the slingshot, he shoots him, and Lisa's like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, Lisa, you taught me to stand up for what I believe in. Roll credits.
Another great line to end the show on, for sure. Mm-hmm.
So, Rich, was there anything from yourself or from that book of yours that you wanted to say about Mr. Lisa Goes to Washington?
I mentioned earlier Homer was reading an article called They Call Me Dr. Soybean. Some of the other articles that were in the Reading Digest that he had was Can We Trust Bermuda and Motoring Miss Hops. And then the Springfield Regional Finals for the Patriots of Tomorrow essay contest are held at the Veterans of Popular Wars Hall. Nice.
I love that they always have these little jokes in the background that I feel like you could watch 1,000 times and miss.
I completely forgot to mention this one, too. It was way at the bottom after a long tidbit of nothingness to read. And in my companion guide here, it says Blinky is seen in the corner of the state map that features Springfield. So Blinky just happened a year ago, or a season ago, and he's already part of the national monument of Springfield, so to
the
speak.
heritage of it all. That's funny.
That's
funny. Very cool. All right, man, I think that's going to do it for this episode, our Season 3 opener of the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. Rich, is there anything that you want to plug before we get out of here?
If you want to talk to me about Jedi Masters or Muggle-born people, well, if you want to talk about Muggle-born people, I say go talk to MrMostDaysOff. But if you want to talk about things that aren't Harry Potter related, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at @thewiz_kid23. Also, while you're on Twitter, go ahead and go on our show page, and that's at Best Darn Diddly, and give us a follow over there. Let us know what you're thinking about our episodes. We love to hear from you guys.
You can also find me on Twitter at MrMostDaysOff, and for you wrestling fans, you can catch me on Voices of Wrestling every week, where I review Lucha Underground on the show Lucha of the Hidden Temple. If you want to help out the show, we'd really appreciate it, and you can do that quite easily. All you have to do is go to iTunes and find the Fans Podcast. I need you to write us a 5-star review and mention us by name. If you do that, we will give you a shout out here on the show. Other than that, we are very happy to be back. Thank you again so much for listening. We look forward to all of the episodes coming up here in Season 3, starting next week when we'll have Dr. Andrew Briseño back on the show for When Flanders Failed and Bart the Murderer.
Please, Pop Threads, don't pull our sponsorship.
We'll see you next week.